moving on, and I think this is a good one. This is a really good one. This is to all of you future nursing students, to all of you actual nursing students. This story is meant for you, for all of you future nurses. The average cost of getting into and going through nursing school. I'm going to break this down as much as I possibly can. I'm getting this information, by the way, from the registerednurse.org and collegedata.com. But just right off the bat, the simple and easy answer to that question, how much does it cost to go through nursing school? If you're going to a public school, the average cost in 2017 through 2018 for an academic year, for 1 year, the average cost was $25,290. But that's a public school. If you are going, the average private college tuition cost for a year going to nursing school at a private school is $50,900. So that the delta, the difference between the private and the public school is almost $25,000. If you graduate high school knowing that you want to be a nurse, I am going to talk about in the next story right after this how much nurses make. But if you going into college knowing you want to be a nurse, please do not spend an ungodly amount of money just to go to a private school that you think means more. At the end of the day, we all take the same exam, number one, and number two, once you're a nurse, you're not going to be making millions of dollars to pay off $50,000 worth of debt each academic year. That's not the total, that is each academic year. So that is the easy and simple answer. $25,000 if you're going into public, $50,000 if you're going through a private school. That's straight out of high school, 4 years, get your bachelor's degree. That is the average cost. But I want to break this down to you because there are many ways outside of that to become a nurse. Number one, you can get your associate's degree as a nurse from a community college. That's the pathway I took. You can become a licensed practical nurse. You can become a licensed vocational nurse, which some places also call the diploma nursing program. And you can get a nursing degree at a cheaper cost or go to school even less if you already have a bachelor's degree in something and nursing is your second career, nursing is your second degree, you want to become a nurse, there is a pathway for that. Now that we know the various ways that you can become a nurse, let's break those various ways down into how much each of those ways cost. So starting with the associate's degree program, but I remind you, it's a 2-year program, usually at a community college. Because it's a community college, it's usually much cheaper. The average cost to go to those community college 2-year programs ranges from $3,000 to $14,000 a year. And that is the yearly cost, $3,000 to $14,000. But it's important to know, most hospitals, most acute rehabs, most places are now asking all of their nurses to have a bachelor's degree in nursing. I am going to tell you what the average cost is to go into those associate to bachelor's degree programs. So the average cost, and this is both public and private, goes from $25,000 to $80,000. And that's for the full, usually 2-year program of an associate's to bachelor's degree program. $25,000 to $80,000 depending on what school you go to. Caveat here, this is the way I'm doing it, and I do suggest you guys do this way too, because as an associate's degree program, as an associate's degree nurse, you took your NCLEX, number one. Number two, you are already practicing as a nurse, so you're already getting that experience. So you don't need to be in class to see anything. There's no clinical component to a BSN, ADN to BSN program, so you can do all of these things online. And if you do all of these things online, you can find programs as cheap as $10,000 in total for the entire program. Not for the 1 year, not for the 1 semester, but $10,000 in total, and that's much cheaper than the traditional schooling, which, like I told you prior, can cost between $25,000 to $80,000 depending on what school you go to. So moving on to the LPN and LVN, or the diploma in nursing programs, it's very similar to the associate's degree nursing program. It's a 2-year, usually a 2-year program at a community college, but because you have to take fewer classes most of the time, not all the time, I don't know, but most of the time there are fewer classes, fewer clinical aspects to becoming an LPN or an LVN. The cost is slightly less, so it can cost anywhere between $3,000 and $12,000 at these 2-year programs at a community college. But like I said earlier, most of these big organizations, facilities, hospitals, whatever, they want all of their nurses to have a bachelor's degree. And going from an LPN or an LVN, getting a bachelor's degree is a little more difficult than it is for an associate's degree nurse, because you do need clinical, you do need to have clinical time. There is an extra component to the education from going from an LPN or an LVN to becoming a bachelor's degree nurse. And because of that extra component, there is no all-online courses. There is no all-online programs out there, at least here in the United States. So the cost is, for an LPN to become a BSN or an LVN to become a BSN, it usually does cost $25,000 to $80,000. Usually a little more expensive because you have to pay for a couple more classes, and you have to have, there's a clinical component to most of those programs. And then the final pathway to becoming a bachelor's degree nurse is for those people who want to do nursing as a second career, second degree, whatever. If you already have a bachelor's degree in anything at all, and you want nursing to be a second bachelor's degree, the accelerated programs, the average cost for those programs range from $50,000 to $90,000. Remember, these are accelerated programs. These are already for people who already have a bachelor's degree in something else. So the speed of the classes, the momentum, all of that stuff, all of the good stuff that you get in a 2-year program, they usually squish that down into a 16 or an 18-month program, something like that. But $50,000 to $90,000. And the good thing about those accelerated programs is, at the end of it, you are a bachelor's degree nurse. You pass your NCLEX, you pass your boards, you are Gucci. So I know I just went through 100 different ways you can become a nurse and the costs that go along with each of those different ways. But because nursing is one of those careers, one of those professions that many people want to do, and we need even more, believe it or not, they make the pathway into becoming a nurse different for many different people, because some people don't have all that money to jump into an all bachelor's degree program. Some people don't have the time to spend and give 4 years, and they only have 2 years of their life that they need to bang something out, so they become an LPN or an ADN nurse. So there's just many different ways to become a nurse, but with all those ways comes different kind of costs. Pick the one that most suits your life at the time that you want to, the time you decide you want to become a nurse. Remember, think of costs, but also think of what's going to work in your specific life. I think it's super important. Just in the comment section below, please let me know, how did you become a nurse? What pathway did you take into becoming a nurse? And I think it's always, I love knowing the pathways, because there's literally a million different ways into becoming Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate this. If you guys were informed or educated in any way, shape, or form by these stories, please hit that like button. If you liked my presentation of the news, I really suggest you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every time Q the Nurse drops some hot, fresh press news. Thank you. Catch you next week. Deuces.